How you doing? Good.
I know, I'm texting the studio. We're doing this live.
Really?
So I'm texting to make sure that...
Yeah, seeing what you're seeing, yeah. That's cool.
ask everyone just to take their seats, please. My name is Tom Brennan. It'd be my pleasure and honor once again to be your Master of Ceremonies for our Memorial Day ceremonies here at the Leicester Town Hall. I do ask that if you have a cell phone, you turn it off or you turn it to mute. And also, we do remind that this is not a celebration. These are ceremonies, and that we do ask that you adhere to military decorum at all times while you are in the presence of or attending these ceremonies. On behalf of the Legions of Leicester, VFW, and the 2 American Legions, and the town of Leicester, we bid you welcome. We will now call on Deacon Joe Benukowitz for a prayer.
We gather here in Leicester this morning to remember the men and women who have paid the supreme sacrifice so that we could be here this morning in freedom. Heavenly Father, we are in Leicester this morning to honor those who generously gave of themselves in defense of our country. Help us always to remember their sacrifices, their commitment, even in great adversity and unpopularity. Be our assistance in building and nurturing a society indicative of the principles of freedom and justice, which they so bravely defended for us and the peoples of the lands in whose behalf they fought. For all those family members, loved ones, friends and neighbors who sacrificed so much, some even their lives, we ask your blessings, the blessings of hope and courage, the blessing of self-respect and right ideals, the blessings of continued peace. Also, Heavenly Father, we commend to your gracious and protective care all the men and women of the armed forces here at home and abroad. Keep them safe with your protective hands and guiding grace. Grant to all of us the wisdom and understanding to know your ways better. Give our hearts love to serve you and each other in sincere friendship. Finally, Lord, we ask you to receive into your kingdom all who died in defense of their country, especially those who we commemorate this day. May they find true peace and rest and walk always in your presence. And may we, the members of this community, never, ever forget to remember them. Rest in peace, my brothers and sisters, and may God bless America. Amen.
Thank you, Deacon. We will now ask to come forward Delaney Sherman with a Memorial Day proclamation. Delaney is the town ambassador and an 8th grade student in the Leicester system. Delaney, please.
The Commonwealth of Massachusetts, a proclamation. Whereas while the nation was still recovering from the horrors of the Civil War, people in cities and towns across the country gathered to honor those Union and Confederate soldiers who had given their lives, celebrating the first Decoration Day. And whereas after World War I, the nation came together again to honor those who had fallen in the service of their country. Renamed Memorial Day, the last Monday in May, is when people remember and honor the memory of all the men and women who fought and died in all American wars and conflicts. And whereas throughout our country's history, thousands of Massachusetts citizens have fought in wars and conflicts to defend our safety and way of life. And whereas their legacy of patriotism and dedication to country is an inspiration to all Americans. And whereas it is appropriate that all Massachusetts citizens remember the bravery of those who gave their lives, so that their sacrifices serve as a reminder of the cost of our freedom. Now therefore, I, Charles D. Baker, Governor of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, do hereby proclaim May 29th, 2017 to be Memorial Day, and urge all the citizens of the Commonwealth to take cognizance of this event and participate fittingly in its observance. Given at the Executive Chamber in Boston, this first day of May in the year 2017, and of the independence of the United States of America, the 241st, by His Excellency Charles D. Baker, Governor of the Commonwealth, Karen E. Polito, Lieutenant Governor of the Commonwealth, William Francis Galvin, Secretary of the Commonwealth. God save the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
Thank you, Delaney. We'll now ask local Leicester resident and bagpiper Joe Lennerton to come forward with a musical selection. Thank you, Mr. Lennerton. I will introduce the commanders of the various posts that we have. From the VFW, Post 7556, we have Dave Rice. Shannon Davis, Post 205, David Nussey. Cherry Valley, Post 443, Steve Merrill. The Sons of the American Legion, Mac Ram. And the Women's Auxiliary, Kelly Conroy. Also in attendance is Bruce Sweat, Veterans Flag Officer, Veterans Grave Officer, and the Chairman of the Memorial Day Parade Committee, and any members of the committee, if you would just acknowledge, raising your hand or something, that are a member of that. And we have with us our Veterans Agent for the town, Tim Hickey, up on stage with us. We would now ask the State Representative from the 17th Worcester District, Kate Campanelli, to come forward.
Good morning. President Abraham Lincoln, a leader of our times, addressed a weary nation ripped apart by the Civil War in his Gettysburg Address. President Lincoln's words now prove to have transcended the times. As we gather today in ceremonies across our nation, let us renew our commitment to Lincoln's call. Let us remember the fallen when we debate, even argue, about the real meaning of the word sacrifice. Let us remember their sense of purpose. They weren't easy choices, but they faced their decisions with a profound sense of the moment and with certain knowledge that their actions or inactions had consequences. Our communities, our Commonwealth, and our country face tremendous, daunting economic, social, and political challenges that are far greater consequence and impact than usual. Regardless of your political or philosophical persuasion, we share an abiding obligation to remember their sacrifice, their sense of purpose, and their profound sense of the moment to effectively address the challenges we face if we are to fulfill the legacy they have passed on to us, and if we are to fulfill the legacy passed on to our nation. Now, if you listen to the news and the talk shows today, what you'll hear is that there's a lot wrong with America. You can easily get caught up in all the political divides and disagreements, and then have you believe that America's best days are behind her. But I don't believe that. We are here today because we're honoring something that is good and right in America. The service and sacrifice that millions have answered the call of their country, a call served to a cause greater than themselves. The faces of the fallen soldiers we've learned about and seen in history books, in newspapers, and shown on our television look like me and you. They look like your sons and daughters or our neighbors and friends. When they die, we hear about their families, the children that they left behind, the way they like to spend their weekends, and the way they always knew how to make people laugh. And we always hear about their unshakable, unbiding belief in serving others in their country and their drive to uphold their ideals and principles at any cost. Today we remember, honor, and learn from these men and women who in this war and in wars past stepped beyond ordinary life to become heroes. They represent the best part of us and the best that we can strive to be. We pray for all that stand together as a community, safe and secure in our hometown of Leicester. To the men and women that have left Leicester to serve their country, we say thank you and extend our unwavering support. We may each day practice and pause not just once a year, but each and every day to make their legacy a living mission, to take what is good and right in America and work together every day to fight, fix, and change what's wrong in America and around the world. If we do this, we will ensure that we honor those today, that they did not die in vain, but rather protect and advance a cause much greater than themselves. And we will have ensured for them and for present and future generations that America's best day lies ahead. So God bless our veterans and God bless America.
Thank you, Representative. We'd also acknowledge the other groups that marched in the parade and all of a sudden assisted. We have our Leicester Police Department, thank them for their time, Chief Hurley. We also have our firefighters and EMT with Chief Robert Wilson, and then you can see around the room the various Boy Scouts and Cub Scouts that have joined us here again, and we thank you very much for your participation. I would also, before I introduce Chairman of the Board of Selectmen, Doug Belanger, I would like to take a personal thanks to Doug for coordinating and arranging to make sure that the 110 crosses that drape our common in memorial and memory of the 110 Leicester residents who gave their lives are indeed recognized. So I thank Doug and his volunteers for that. And with that, I will introduce the Chairman of the Board of Selectmen, the Town of Leicester, Doug Belanger.
Thank you, Tom. Regarding the crosses Tom mentioned, for a long time, our great public servant Don Lennerton coordinated and in the end was putting them up mostly by himself. And it got to be quite a task. Last year, residents Mark Hurley and Sherry Hurley coordinated in preparing new crosses. And this year, when I heard Donnie was having some difficulty getting the folks, I reached out to some people, and people responded as this town always does, and I'm going to briefly recognize them. In addition to myself, Selectman Diana Provenza and former Selectman Sandy Wilson not only showed up, but high school students came out with a day's notice, and they are Rob Kemp, Colleen Lamprey, Andrew Lee, Nick LaBeouf, and Tom Steiger. And they all, again, show that through generations, the pride we have in this community, again, to do the right thing. And as I thank them, I have to share with you, they thanked me for the opportunity. It is my pleasure and truly an honor to be representing the Board of Selectmen here today. Vice Chairman Harry Brooks, Diana Provenza, second Vice Chair, and members Tom Buckley and Mike Shivik. On March 15th, 1943, a young man, like tens of thousands of other young men, enlisted in the U.S. Army. This particular enlistee was trained as a sharpshooter, a structural demolitions expert, and was assigned to the 992nd Combat Engineer Bridge Company. On June 6, 1944, D-Day, he became part of the Allied effort that started in Normandy, France, and ultimately ended the reign of Adolf Hitler. That World War II operation coordinated more men and weapons than was ever assembled before or since, in a war that recorded the largest armed conflict in human history. It was just 14 days before that particular young man's 20th birthday. His name was Joseph Belanger, and I'm proud to say he was my dad. Like most combat veterans, my father seldom spoke of his experiences. He'd simply say, "I did what I had to do, came home, and tried to live the life we were all fighting to preserve. Raise a family, serve the community, and thank God for the opportunity to live in the United States of America." It was not until he himself was preparing to join his deceased band of brothers that he shared some of those specific memories and those experiences. Over 60 years had passed, yet as he laid there recalling those days, his voice would crack and his eyes would tear up. He spoke of overcrowded boats, the rough seas and the constant seasickness. But instead of finding relief at finally reaching their drop point, those defenders of freedom were met with horror. The sounds of screaming men drowning from the weight of their own equipment, the sight of dead or dying men in the water and on the beach, and of paratroopers being shot as they defensively floated from above. And the thundering noise from the constant barrage of the big guns going overhead in all directions. The fear, the confusion, the acceptance that at any moment was going to be their last. He said that they were only able to continue because civilization as they knew it was counting on each and every one of them doing what needed to be done. I think of these things, and I never knew my father then, obviously, and all of those soldiers of all branches in their 20s. Think of the kids we know in our 20s right now going through that. I can't fathom it. The days turned into weeks, months, and years, and for the rest of his life, in addition to the nightmares, he and so many others carried the added weight of guilt, second-guessing. So many of my brothers were maimed or died. What else could I have done? Why not me? War maneuvers have changed over the years, but the overall experiences of all of our combat veterans does not likely differ much in effect from my dad and his compadres. Veterans put actions over words every single time they put on the uniform, and they just do what needs to be done. And they all carry those memories of their own hell through their entire lives. We who have been served owe a debt that cannot be repaid, but it can be honored every day of our lives. By exercising our freedoms, by participating in democracy, and by actively supporting those who have sacrificed beyond comprehension to protect our American way of life. On behalf of the Board of Selectmen and a grateful community, thank you and God bless our veterans.
Thank you, Chairman Belanger. We are also pleased to once again have with us Tech Sergeant Brooke Malley, the United States Air Force, who accompanied in the parade Amber Keats of Leicester. Amber has entered the Air Force and expects to attend Lackland Air Force Base sometime in October. So again, thank you very much. I would now ask Leicester High School sophomore Brenna St. John to come forward with the Gettysburg Address.
7 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation or any nation so conceived and so dedicated can long endure. We are met on a great battlefield of that war. We have come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those who here gave their lives that that nation might live. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this. But in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hollow this ground. The brave men, living and dead, who struggled here, have consecrated it far above our poor power to add or detract. The world would little know nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here. It is for us, the living, rather to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they who fought have thus far so nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here, dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave that lastful measure of devotion, that we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom, and that the government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth.
Thank you, Brenna. We would now ask Betty Benoit to come forward with a Memorial Day poem, My Name is Old Glory.
Good afternoon. I am the flag of the United States of America. My name is Old Glory. I fly atop the tallest buildings. I stand watch in America's halls of justice. I fly majestically over great institutions of learning. I stand guard with the greatest power in the world. Look up and see me. I stand for peace, honor, truth, and justice. I stand for freedom. I am confident. I am arrogant. And I am proud. When I fly with my fellow banners, my head is a little higher, my colors a little truer. I bow to no one. I am recognized all over the world. I am worshiped. I am saluted. I am respected. I am revered. I am loved. And I am feared. For over 240 years, I have fought in every battle of every war. Fort McHenry, Gettysburg, San Juan Hill, the trenches of France, the Argonne Forest, the deserts of Africa, the beaches of Normandy, the Battle of the Bulge, Guadalcanal, Incheon, Chosin, Lorraine, Somalia, Kuwait, Baghdad, Kandahar, and Seven Seas. American prisoners of war used me as a sign of hope in the Hanoi Hilton. Places long remembered, places long forgotten. For all who were with me, I was there. I led my soldiers, I followed them, I watched over them. They loved me. I was on a small hill in Iwo Jima. I was dirty, battle-worn, and tired, but my soldiers cheered me, and I was proud. I was at Ground Zero in New York City on September 11th as cowardly fanatics attacked America. I was raised from the ashes of once proud buildings by brave firefighters, heroes who risked their lives to save others, showing all that America, though bloodied, will never be beaten. Those who would destroy me cannot win, for I am the symbol of freedom, of one nation, under God, indivisible, with justice for all. I have been soiled, burned, torn, and trampled upon on the streets of countries I have helped set free. It does not hurt, because I am invincible. I have been soiled, burned, torn, and trampled upon the streets of my own country. And when it is done by those with whom I have served in battle, it hurts, but I shall overcome, for I am strong. I have slipped the bonds of earth and stand watch over the uncharted new frontiers of space from my vantage point on the moon. I have been a silent witness to all of America's finest hours. But my finest hour comes when I am torn in strips to be used as bandages for my wounded comrades on the field of battle. When I fly half-mast to honor my soldiers. And when I lie in the trembling arms of a grieving mother at the gravesite of her fallen son or daughter. My name is Old Glory. Long may I wave, dear God. Dear God, long may I wave.
Thank you, Betty. We will now ask Gloucester High School junior Lauren St. John to come forward with an Americanism speech.
Good morning. Thank you all for joining us today as we remember those who made the ultimate sacrifice while fighting for our freedom. I would like to take a moment to personally thank all of the veterans present today for their service. I would like to especially thank my grandfather, who's here today, for his service in the Vietnam War. Even in these uncertain times in the world, as Americans, we do not have to worry about our safety. We are protected every minute of every day by men and women who put their lives at risk for the greater good of our country. It is difficult to imagine that there are people in other parts of the world who do not have the same sense of security that we do. Our servicemen and women provide a peace of mind. To those who have lost loved ones, please know that there are many people who are grateful for them for what they have done. I've felt connected to the military my whole life. Military service has been a very important part of my family since the day I was born. Both of my grandfathers, my great-grandfathers, my uncle, many great-uncles, and cousins have had some role in the military, whether it was in the Navy, the Army, or the Air Force. My great-grandfather was stationed on the USS Maryland at Pearl Harbor the day it was attacked. He flew fighter bombers in World War II and led a helicopter squadron in the Korean War. When I would walk into his house as a young kid, I would see him sitting, proudly wearing his hat with his military pins. I could see how much his time in the military was a part of him. This pride is evident in every member of my family who has served this great nation. While I do not personally plan on entering the military, I do plan on taking the lessons I have learned from them into my profession. Being an American means serving others. Being an American means that we make tough decisions and sacrifices for the benefit of our community. Being an American means that we always do what is needed of us. This is what I have learned from the men and women of the military. I am grateful that I have had such incredible role models who have led by example. I appreciate those who have given their lives so that strangers can live out of the ideals of our founding fathers. I recognize the importance of carrying on the American spirit. Americans band together in the face of adversity. We are a family. We are a team. We support each other in loss. We celebrate each other in victory. We are strong. We are united. We are Americans.
Thank you, Lauren. It is now my honor to introduce to us our Senator Michael Moore.
Good afternoon. Thank you for allowing me to be here today. I've had the opportunity this morning of going from Millbury, Northbridge. I just left Worcester, where they're celebrating the State Vietnam Memorial, and it's really heartwarming to see so many people coming out on a day to remember our family and friends who have given their lives on behalf. And one thing that really struck me at the Vietnam Memorial, as we were talking, one of the speakers was talking about how young he was when he was drafted. As I think most of us know, the Vietnam War was the last war where we had the draft. And it really made me think, and I started thinking about my son, who's 12, or my daughter today, who's 15, because men and women are going overseas and fighting on our behalf today, that so many of these people veterans that who have made the ultimate sacrifice for us, and roughly we had about 1 million people who have made that sacrifice. When they went to fight on our behalf, they're basically kids. You know, we think of them as adults. Some of them at that time may not even have their first drink of alcohol. They may not even have had a first job. They went right from high school to the service. And as this one speaker said, he went to Vietnam. And he didn't even know where Vietnam was. So they were today where it's an all-volunteer service, which I don't want to say, it makes it more than sacrifices than what was made. But we got people, young kids, young family members, sons, daughters, that are going overseas, fighting on our behalf. And they're there today, in Afghanistan, still in the Middle East, fighting every day that we see on TV. Again, I said, they're young kids. And in a short period of time now, they've had more experiences than some of us will ever have. And sad to say, and a lot of it's going to be the horrors of war. I know we're here to recognize the million lives that have gone before us and have made the sacrifices, but we should really think, as we're remembering today, thank God for these young kids, male and female, who are making the sacrifice on our behalf today. So to all the veterans, thank you, and to all the family members who have lost someone, thank you very much, and God bless you, and God bless America.
Thank you, Senator. I would now ask Christian Jacobs to join me up here. We will, next portion of our ceremony will be the firing squad, followed by taps. And then Kristen will sing the national anthem, and will be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I ask all visitors to rise, remove your hats, place your hands over your heart. Commander Sweat.
Firing squad, attention. Port arms. Ready, aim, fire. Ready, aim, fire. Ready, aim, fire. Present arms.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's bright glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. Prior to the conclusion, we would just like to mention and thank Leicester Cable Access, who will be running, they've streamed this live, and for the remainder of today, it will be on channel 191. There will be constant Memorial Day audio and visual on Leicester Cable Access 191. So we thank them for the use of their facilities and equipment and in their participation today. I will now call upon Deacon Joe Benukowitz for a benediction as we conclude our program.
What did they pay and what did they give us? Those that gave their lives for freedom. We have a job to do, each and every one of us. And it begins with you individually. What do we want? We want peace. We want peace. And peace begins with each and every one of us individually. Between now and hopefully we'll all be here next year to commemorate and to remember the men and women who have paid the supreme sacrifice. A little job of homework for each and every one of us. Get yourself a copy of the prayer of St. Francis. I'll give you the first line. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. As we leave here this morning, or this afternoon, we ask each and every one of you to say a prayer for peace, to remember those who have gone, and to support with our prayers the men and women who serve us so that we can be here in freedom. God bless America.
Thank you, Deacon. There will be open house at the Cherry Valley American Legion post on Route 9, post 443, and also at the Shannon Davis post on River Street in Rochdale, 205. That concludes our program. We thank you so very much for your attendance today and for your attention to decorum. Thank you once again for participating. Commanders, Attention. Dismiss your troops.